Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison, that's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I'm Becca Merkel.
We're sitting in the blowy rain. And if Becca would turn the windshield wipers on, we would be able to see some very scenic cows.
Yeah, they're kind of frolicking, actually. Frolicking in the rain. Look, there's a stampede. They're actually
they are having a little hustle. I wonder why.
I said, oh, they're frolicking. That's when there was one. And then they're all just like, hey, we'll come too. And now they're all running amok.
Well, now that you're all up on what's happening with the cows, I have to say, 2 episodes ago, when we just lingered on the topic of cloth napkins, I felt some nagging, stop it, Rachel, stop it, no one cares thought. Then the next episode, we hit on the cloth napkins again. And the part that I think is really intriguing is that everyone around me keeps bringing up their cloth napkin concerns since that time, which made me feel like maybe we should just open up a new podcast about cloth napkins. Like just a weekly focus on the cloth napkins. But the praise report is that since our last napkin episode, I sewed napkins out. I made 15 napkins out of a fabric that's been lingering in my life, where this opens up another theory of mine. It's a fabric because it's on the horizon now when we move into our new house. It's on my mental, like, I don't want to pack a bunch of good intentions from times past.
No.
It's like there's stuff that you want to just fish or cut bait with.
Yep.
This is a pretty piece of fabric that I have had for a while, and because it's pretty, I have not. This is my other
dispatched it.
Well, the prettier it is, the less you want to just do something with it.
Yeah.
But the problem is, then you end up treasuring it while you grow out of liking it. This fabric I still like. It's pretty. But the thing that's interesting to me is that I've done that with other things where you're like, I love this so hard that I want to only use it for something good. Or I love the idea of it. Whatever it is, you think this is so good that I have to find the ultimate destiny for it.
Yeah.
But then there isn't one and you don't do it. And then what happens, as you all may know already, is that someday you get it out and you're like, and this is one of my most prized possessions. And then you look at it and you're like, but why?
Yeah.
Why did I?
Well, I have a particular trouble with one of my most prized possessions because it is a really beautiful. Rachel's texting right now.
I'm sorry. I'm coordinating a carpool situation to a bowling party.
While I unpack my heart over here about my most prized possession.
What's your most prized possession?
No, it's a tablecloth I bought in Paris, and I spent a way big lot of money on it because it was the first time we'd gone to Paris. I had a little chunk of money that I had set aside that I was like, I'll use that in Paris. I'll get something in Paris. And then we were only there for 3 days, and we had this incredible experience because there was a girl that had been a foreign exchange student with Ben's family when he was in junior high. And she was French, and they kind of kept in touch. And so we were going to be flying into Paris, and he was like, we should say hi to her. So anyway, she was super excited, came down to the airport to greet us. And then as soon as we were there, she was like, you're not going to the hotel. You're coming to stay with me. And she had married in the intervening times, I think, one of the wealthiest men in France. Crazy,
worst luck,
ridiculous, and takes us to her flat, which is stunningly beautiful. It's the top floor of right in the center of Paris. The Arc de Triomphe is right out the window, and it was amazing. Turns out they own the whole building. They're serving us wine for lunch from their chateau in Bordeaux. It was ridiculous. But she then undertakes...
Becca got in the mood and bought herself a really expensive tablecloth.
She undertakes to show us Paris, but she has a great disdain for tourists. So she wouldn't take us anywhere that tourists might go. So basically all we did was eat. We just went from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant. And it was amazing, but it was like we would finish off like a 4-hour lunch and go home for a quick nap before we went out for dinner. Like, it was really funny. And then every time we would suggest maybe we ought to look at, something, she would do this like very sort of, you are not tourists. And we're like, well, we kind of are though. But anyway, then all to say, I had about 27 minutes to shop because it was in this brief shining moment where we were between meals.
Yeah.
And I saw this tablecloth and it was incredible and I loved it dearly. And I was like, well, that'll be what I bought in Paris. And I spent all my monies on it. And it was, I don't know how much I paid for it, but it was probably like, I feel like it was like $400 or $500 for this. Yeah. But I was sort of like...
So that at that point, you really are going to have to put the thing under plastic.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, you shall not
But it is
leave a mark.
So beautiful. And I still love it. But I have never one time, I don't think, ever used it on my table for a meal. It's really bad. And
no, you just need a little clear coat on that. Yeah.
Yeah, clear coat. Have it laminated.
You could Scotch guard it.
Oh, but it would ruin it. It's such a beautiful fabric. It's like...
But Scotch guard doesn't make a textural difference.
Well, I feel like it's...
I'm not sure that I would do that, but I'm just telling you,
it's like
you
a
could.
Very polished cotton is sort of the texture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bouvelet is one that gets me a lot.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so
well,
pretty.
anyways, it's good to know that Becca owns one prized tablecloth.
It's tucked off in a cupboard that no one's ever seen.
I've said it before in here, this is my big, and this was also part of me just making the napkins, is that it's that thing about let your ideas die with dignity, because sometimes something just haunts you. Like, for years you could go about being like, oh, this is the fabric I could make napkins out of. And then you just keep on telling yourself that, but you never actually take action.
No.
So I was pleased to have taken the action.
How'd you hem them?
With a faux mitered corner for people who can't stop what else they're doing. I did a
faux mitered corner. Did you just angle, fold it under, and keep going?
Pretty dang much. What I actually did, really elaborate, is I angle folded it under when I got to the corner.
Yeah.
No, if you cut a tiny triangle out of the corner, cut a tiny snip off the end so you get some of the bulk out of it.
Okay.
Fold that part in. And then when you fold it in just like a hem allowance amount, and then you double fold, because the hems I was putting on this thing, you don't think I pinned anything or ironed it.
I don't. Well, I iron, but I don't pin.
I believe in ironing and pinning both, but not when I'm sewing 15 napkins real fast. So I just double folded it in, and that worked fine.
There you go.
I mean, I wasn't trying to make a $500 napkin set. I was just trying to make some that we'll use,
And is it bringing you joy?
Yeah, I think it bring me joy that I did that.
Good.
That I acted on it. Okay, so we had some questions.
All right.
And I was like, I will endeavor. One I thought would be really good of us to touch on, because I know we're both passionate about this issue, and we have tons and tons and tons to say. Potty training your children.
Oh,
I'm joking about us being passionate about it. I thought, for how many kids we have between us, you're gonna come away with precious few suggestions for how to potty train them, and yet all of our children have been successfully potty trained.
We have 100% success rate.
12 kids using the toilets as expected of adults. And, but I think that I don't know. I just thought, I don't feel like we're really a great resource for that.
No, you're right, because...
I have a few thoughts, I guess.
Okay, well, give them to me.
One is that potty training was the first part of mothering for me with my eldest that I was actually like, I hate this. Not, like, I mean, this is a task in parenting that I genuinely do not like.
Okay.
But it got a lot better when I recognized that was a pitfall in my own life, and just realizing that it was not helpful. Like, I think it was much harder for me to do that first time than it was
Well,
later.
I'll tell you a secret that I hate, and that is the little potties that sit off in the corner of the room by themselves. I just hate those.
Yeah, I think that's a big head fake for people, because what I can't figure out is why not have our children just use the main
That's
potty.
the thing.
I like the flushing feature.
Yeah,
Is actually
yes,
the flushing
yes.
feature is a thing that I admire about toilets.
And I think the problem is when you feel like, you don't want them to just fall in. But at the same time...
Nor do you want them to be incapacitated when they see a toilet that will be standard issue everywhere.
But I just
So,
mean,
like, when you find yourself packing it in your purse to take a porty potty with you. No.
Oh, boy.
I guess my point is it's important to get the kids thinking that a real potty is the plan. Like, a full toilet is what we're here for.
I outgrew myself in my spiritual journey of potty training. I outgrew the little plastic
Trainer
ones.
toilets.
Trainer toilets.
I have to say that another thing I outgrew in my mothering was changing tables. Because it just was like, what am I doing? I changed the baby everywhere. Later on in my parenting journey, I would change the baby on the couch or on our bed or on wherever you happen to be. And so then I would have a changing table in their bedroom to put their clean clothes on. When they're like napping, so you sneak in and set a stack of stuff on it, but it's not put away.
I used a changing table for all of them because that's where I stored all of the diapers and wipes and everything. So I might not use it for changing all the time.
Kept wipes and diapers in a drawer in the living room.
That's
and
also clever.
In the bedroom, and I just had them everywhere. So
you're right, because you actually have those wipes are flying around.
They're everywhere in your life. Yeah. So anyways, we had that. I just think with kids potty training, the problem is when you start too early or your own pride is invested in it in some way, rather than it became something that I actually enjoyed with the kids, that they were like learning their own independence and feeling proud of themselves, and
if you're into like potty training your 4-month-old, you're gonna have to not
use a different level of hype.
But you also can't use the big potty in those times. You're just gonna have to buy.
I bought a seat. I bought the small seat that you could leave beside the potty for when someone was like an insert.
Sure.
For especially the early days when they were just getting comfortable. And then I have to say, I would give them treats.
Or something.
I'm a believer in pull-ups because that was part of the anxiety the first time. I didn't want to be that person who was like, are you sitting on the couch? Why are you sitting on the couch? Oh no, come over here. Don't stand on the carpet. Get over here. Do you have to go to the bathroom? It was a really stressful way to live for a little while. So I'm a believer in pull-ups because they were my own margin of error, because the problems a beginner potty trainer is having is mom's problems, not their problem. And it's that I forgot to take them, or I forgot. So one thing I would do is get a little, like a kitchen timer, and I would set the timer for like 15 minutes. I'll tell you a secret about this. But anyways, I would set the timer, and so when it would go off, I would tell them when the timer goes off, it's, what is it? What are you pointing out here?
What is that bird sitting on?
Oh, that is so weird.
It's sitting on like...
It's a wire. It's gotta be a wire.
I don't see it.
There is a...
That's really weird.
It is a wire.
Oh my word. It's like where? It's like a bird was just sitting up in the sky, just
midair.
Doing nothing.
How weird.
I see no wire at all.
We just saw
I see no poles.
I can see the wire.
Can you?
Yeah. But it is really weirdly camouflaged. So, anyways, what I was going to say, I like when we have those sorts of nobody cares what we're seeing that fascinates us. So, what I was going to say is that I would turn the timer on, and I would just say when the timer goes off, that we just called it the potty clock. When the timer goes off, we have to try to go to the bathroom. And that was less me nagging them incessantly.
Yeah.
With like, well, do you have to go? You might have to go. But when, but I will tell you that the secret to that is that they won't have to go the first time. They won't have to go the second time. The third time, you're like, it's been 45 minutes. I'm sure you could go to the bathroom. They won't have to go. And right after that is when they have the accident. Yep. That's how that pans out.
Always.
But then the other thing I would just say is being really encouraging when they're having success, and no big deal about the mistakes, because that's what I thought pull-ups were good for, is they enabled me to not feel like it was a big deal either. Like to just be, to not have me fighting the flesh about the mess that they were making. It was just better to be like,
I don't actually remember my feelings about pull-ups. I use them sometimes. I don't know.
I honestly, and I will say something, and this is way more stepping on other people's toes.
Okay, step.
Let me go in and step. When I said that neither of us care very much about potty training, then I'm going to come out with a hard line about potty training. I'm going to be like, I'm not one of those people who has strong feelings. Here I go rejecting your plans. Here's what I'm not a fan of the just have your kid be naked all day.
No.
And the reason is for lots of reasons, but especially when you have other children. I just think that there's a real element that we're trying to teach them in a step up in dignity from the diapers, and not a step down in dignity from the diapers.
Yep.
Because when you have a diaper on, you're decent.
Yep.
When your mom is making you be nude all day, to what end? Like, what are we doing? And so I'm not a fan of that. And it wouldn't be, I don't feel as averse to it if it is your first child and
I don't
but even
know why,
then,
though. I don't know what it helps.
The thought is that they're going to, I think the idea is it helps them much more quickly understand what's happening.
Really?
With their because they're used to not really seeing it. But the point that I'd like to make here is that I'm not a fan of that. Even though people swear by that method, I don't like it for other reasons.
Yeah, I just feel like we always tried, even when our kids were little enough that it didn't matter, to still be teaching them about modesty and decency and everything else, and I just feel
to be respecting them in the way, so you respect them in the way that when you discipline them, you would not rebuke them in front of all of the children or have a big talk with them, and like you give them the dignity of a private discussion about something that you're concerned about. You don't there's a way in which we try to keep a lot more, and I have to say that this is off the potty training, but I mean, there are things we would say to one child in private that we would never say to them about themselves in front of the siblings.
Nope.
And a big part of the reason for that, it's mentioned in Narnia a lot where he says it's not your story.
Totally.
Right? And that in part of building sibling loyalty and stuff is to not have everyone in the habit of thinking that what we do is criticize each other and be this way.
Plus, I think it's super important that your kids know that you would never talk in a disparaging or unkind or embarrassing way about them to anybody. And the thing is if you're showing them that if you act that way within the privacy of your own home, with your own family members, then of course they would never think you would be out talking about them at the ladies' Bible study or to all your friends at church or whatever it is. I just think, it's really important that your kids know that you have their backs. And there are so many ways that moms just say the opposite
I saw something
to
that
them.
was well off. I don't even know where it was, but it was a mom, like a FYI to all of you moms out there. Like, you need to know about this. And but in the you know the kind I'm talking about, right? Like, it'll typically be like, these apps are dangerous or something. I don't know. It was one of those like mom warrior sorts of announcements.
Sure,
But the announcement was essentially revealing to anyone on Facebook that you just caught your young teen son looking at things he should not have been looking at.
Oh, no.
And it's like, I need you all to be aware that I didn't know this was possible on this app. And I just feel like, woman, stuff it now. Like, whatever you're doing here,
gosh.
I am ashamed of what you are doing here. Because, and it's not because there shouldn't be like a reality of sin, but she was basically exposing a sexual sin of her 12-year-old as a, like, it was sad. You know, you think like, well, how, you know, what when he gets Facebook someday and finds out that you did that? I mean, what kind of respect is that?
Yeah,
it was just
terrible.
embarrassing.
No, and I feel like there's a funny line that, I don't know, I think if you're paying attention to it, you know right where it is, actually, which is, you can tell hilarious stories about your toddler.
Well, we clearly like to tell those.
We do it. But there comes a moment where it's a hilarious story, but your child would be really embarrassed to know that you were out telling the story. And so it's just basic golden rule. Like, would you enjoy it if your mother or your husband or your sister or whoever started telling your less favorite stories to everyone? You know.
Yeah, no, you don't want that. So
don't
I
do
guess,
it to your
but
kids.
I think that it's a much earlier edition when it's the potty training thing, but it's like sort of like for the effect of just getting it done. We don't care what it costs the child, even if they don't know what they're...
I think that goes for, even if
It's a thing, I feel.
Whatever sort of discipline also, like, that's a thing that, whatever it was, we tried to have it just be between you and the child. And it's not always possible. Right. You're on a road trip, somebody's being a little turkey in the way back or the way back.
But even like, that was
you just have to say, like, hey, Schwartz in the back.
Yeah.
You're going to be done now. You're going to be done now.
Yeah.
And some of that's okay, because we do believe that, you know, your
repentance needs to be as public as the sin.
Yeah, as public as the sin. So sometimes
but even
it's okay.
But even the apology is not the same thing as the rebuke.
No.
So, for instance, at our house, we would take the kid back to talk with them, and then they would come out to put it right. But it would not be that whoever was wronged got to be there for the whole, like, how bad did they get in trouble? What level of, that's just not their concern.
Even, like, sometimes, okay, so you're on a road trip and
there's another bird on the wire.
Oh, man. Things are getting sniffy in the back seat, let's say. Occasionally, there's a lot you can just do with small tune-ups as you're on the road. But sometimes you pull it over. You're just, there you are, you're on the side of the road. Having to deal with the sins.
We had on an eventful trip to the Oregon coast.
Oh, my land.
One time. It took us 11 hours to get there.
Well, it just takes 11 hours. That's how long it takes.
Does the deadline take 11 hours? Then it probably took us longer than 11 hours. However it was a very long time in the minivan. And the twins were babies, so it was the twins in car seats. And then behind them, the two girls in car seats. So it was like a barrage of car seats. But with what would have been, the twins were like 8 months, so it would have been a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old in the back. And we went to the Oregon coast, and on the way, I hit a woman. That was a peak moment where I found out I don't mind physical confrontations. It was weird. She must have been on drugs of some kind. She was literally like foaming at the mouth. Mm-hmm. And she came up to she looked really glassy-eyed and weird. And she wanted to get in the van with us. And Luke was like, sorry, no, we're not giving you a ride. And it was just to all you who were worried about what was happening there. It was not a place where there was no civilization. It was not up to us to put her in the back with the babies.
Right.
And, anyways, she wanted a ride and Luke said no. And then she just kind of kept coming towards us. So Luke is trying to buckle somebody into their car seat while using his body to block the opening. But she is defying all personal space boundaries and coming up right up against him. So he's stretched into the back of the van, and she reaches over his back to touch Titus's head. Titus was in the car seat. At which time I slapped her hand away and said, "What are you doing?" And then Luke got back out, slammed the door, ran around, jumped to the driver's side while she stood up next to my window cussing me out.
Oh no.
It was a little unnerving. Anyways, we got all the way to the Oregon coast. And then we were there for like a week with all the cousins. So nothing but eating Oreos when no one noticed you were getting them. Playing on the beach and staying up too late. Like physical labor. Staying up too late. Eating, it was like on the way back. There weren't any wheels on our wagon. We were just well past the fried point. Like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and the 2 babies. And so we get in the car, in the minivan. And it is like in the driveway of the house we're leaving, we're having some kind of a scene that is worse than we've ever had with the kids. It's like things are really wrong. And we got that dealt with. We drive, 30 or 40 feet. We're having another huge meltdown. And then we get on the road. Both babies are screaming at the top of their lungs. And then behind them, the 2 toddlers are fighting. 2 screaming infants and 2 squabbling toddlers, and so it felt like every quarter mile we're pulling over and I'm climbing into the back and trying to all right, say, Daphne, I'm sorry for being rude, and keep your hands to yourself, and then I get all the way back up to the front and sit down, and then you'd hear it erupting in the back, but all over screaming infants. So by the time we get to Portland, which is, how far was it to Portland?
Well, it's a little ways. I mean, it's
maybe an hour and a half or something.
Maybe.
By the time we got to Portland, I was just like ready to join the fracas in the back, and because I'm telling Luke, I don't think we can go further. Like, we just have to stop. We can't leave. We're not going to be allowed to drive further than Portland, because this is an untenable situation in the minivan. And at one point, I don't remember who did it. One of the toddler girls ripped a chunk of hair out of the other one's head. And they were not side by side. They were like, must have been reaching across the chasm to annoy each other. And it was just like, you have got to be kidding us. So we did the thing, like what you have to do with your smartphone, where you give it a hard recharge. Like, we stopped at a Safeway. And we got in, because I think the twins managed to actually be still crying that whole way. Like, they were still loud and crying. I'm sure that the girls in the back were not giving them the feeling it was safe to stop crying. So we reached the Safeway in Portland, and where we stop, and we separate everyone into carts. And we went inside. And we goofed off in the Safeway in Portland, like pushing them in the cart and talking to them. Like, there was some discipline that had to take place. And then we bought everyone, like, new sippy cups and, like, something, I don't know. I feel like we got the twins each a new car seat toy. We got us coffee. We were like, let's all pretend that we can do this. And then, but when we got back to the car, the babies went to sleep, and it was like, once we finished at Safeway, it became a tenable thing that we could go home. But up until then, I was like, we aren't allowed to travel. No, it's not working.
No. Well, on that same trip, I remember us trying to make just one little drive from Tillamook back to our cabin, which shouldn't have taken that long, I don't think. But we had to pull over, I don't even know how many times, for various and sundry disciplines, but it was because everyone was little. Everyone was like under 8.
They were wee dinks.
The thing that was happening is we were breaking alliances between cousins, because we were having a weird problem where they were picking on this trip. They were picking favorite cousins.
Yeah.
And they couldn't stop themselves from picking favorite cousins.
No, it was like a hot trend.
And so we were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not having a favorite cousin. And then we'd get on the road and there would be sort of a little mutter from the back, but I am Lucy's favorite or something. And so it was just
nothing you say can stop the truth.
Or, well, she does like me more than you. And so we had to keep on. It was like it had turned into this full-on unstoppable situation.
Also during that trip, Mom sewed skirts for all the girls to wear. And so Mom wanted a photo shoot of all the girls in the skirts.
And one of my girls
and one of Becca's girls.
But I don't know who.
I know who.
Was it Hero?
We're going to keep it secret.
Speaking
who did
of
it.
talking
it
about
was
your
Belle.
children.
It was Belle because
Was it?
you can tell because when you go look at those photos, Belle is in none of them because Belle was in like an hour and a half conference with her dad, and then she would be periodically brought out in her skirt where she would then make a total skunk face. And then she would get taken away again to talk more about the issues. And then it would be like 30 minutes later, here they come. And then
I just love it because we have a whole series of photos in England that Hero is missing from because she's off in the corner with Ben, and it's so funny. And and she's got this little fat face of sin, and he's hunkered over speaking to her in the corner of the church. So there's like all the photos of the church where King Alfred was supposed to have baptized Guthrum in this very font. And so we're there to see the font. Everyone's having a great time, except lurking in the back we can see Ben and Hero in conference. But it's really great. But the thing is, what was I trying? How did we get here? Oh, I was just saying that like even if it's a thing like that where you have to keep on pulling over to deal with the issues, oftentimes it'd be like, okay, you need to hop out and we're going to have a talk over here on the side of the road. And
I didn't do that. Not when they were 2 and 3.
No, but they're 2 and 3. But I'm just saying, like, if we're talking about the 8 and 9-year-olds.
Oh yeah, no, you just have a speak
it's
in
like,
private.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna pull over. The family will sit here and hum.
Or sometimes we'll say, just put a bookmark on that, and we're gonna talk about it when we get home. Like I'm gonna talk with you about that. But if you've got 11
hours ahead in the car, it's like let's deal with it
Absolutely,
now.
yeah.
I just feel like having some measure of dignity for
I think one of our best, we've maybe told this, but this is about my husband Luke, the patron saint of children in distress, at some time during Sabbath when Belle wouldn't eat her hamburger. And Belle kept getting taken away to speak about it. But there's a lot of people at Sabbath.
Well, but see,
and in the course of the
Belle
time...
was probably 3, you think?
Oh, yeah. And in the course of the time where Belle would not take a bite. So it was like an untouched burger.
No.
And then,
also, Ben wasn't having time to eat his burger either, I think, because he spent the whole time taking Belle back and forth to the bathroom to have.
But in the course of this time, where other people didn't notice what was happening, it turned into the time where we were clearing the table, and Luke ate Belle's burger. And so, at some point, she came out to face it again, and the Lord had withdrawn the affliction.
We like to hope that was the moment where she was ready to submit.
We're sure she was. Either way, it was like a last minute.
But it's
pardon.
always. I think it's very important. We didn't really mean to go here with our talk.
Apparently, that's what we do.
The thing is I think it's always important that you win the battle. And the battle may seem
long and tedious.
Yeah, it may seem like there's no hope in sight, and it may seem like you've been at this for 2 hours and 17 minutes, but
because you have,
yeah, and you might be regretting now that you picked the battle.
Yes,
but
you might be learning wisdom about when to not tell your child to say hi to someone in the future.
But having picked the battle, it is very important that you win it.
Yeah, because kids pick up on that real fast.
No, because if they learn that by a mere, exerting of the will for 2 hours and 17 minutes, they can win,
they'll do it.
Guess what they'll do?
And then they'll test themselves to see if they could make it 3 hours. Maybe 3 and 11 minutes.
And
so one thing that I would say about this, and this is just, as a mother of 7 children, who I'm happy to say are fun to be around.
Yeah.
With not that I am claiming without errors in judgment or raucousness or ample times things that we have to correct or
Sure.
I'm not in no way saying that we have a flawless situation, but I'm just telling you that I know what it is to deal with the problems that children present.
Yeah.
I've been there and I've done that. And the most common thing I see happening all the time with parents of toddlers is parents losing petty battles over and over and over and over and over.
Yep.
And almost not noticing that they're losing it.
Right.
Like they just move on.
Yeah.
They just let a kid do something evil, Knievel at them, and then they just overlook it. And the thing is that that's not your job to ignore their failings as a toddler. Your job is to have them be a joyful human. And I remember one time when my girls, the older two, were, I don't know how big they were. It was probably around the time they were pulling each other's hair out. But we actually did a full demonstration of, we drew a picture of a flower, and I was explaining to him. They were a little older than that. But where we were talking about how sweet and fun they are and how much we enjoy them and this is beautiful, etc. And then we drew a big black thistle. Yeah. And I put it in front of it. I think we cut it out of black paper. I don't know what. But where you could no longer see the flower. Yeah. And I'm like, this is your fussy attitude. And the reality is, as a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you know a personality of your baby that is cute and fun and funny and joyful. You know that personality that you love and that you delight in, and that then there comes a time when your child is actually not being pleasant to be around. They're not fun. They're not being funny. Right. They're always the problem. They're always dragging behind you. They're always demanding something or fussing about it. And you realize that's your problem, that you didn't weed that garden. Yep. If you can't see the delightful little person that you should be seeing, then you're not in fellowship with your child in a way that you should be. Yeah. And that you have to go in and be and more times than I could recount, we've had team meetings where I have apologized to children for letting something go to the point that this is actually something we have to deal with now.
Right. And the thing is you are deciding what will get set in concrete in your child.
Right, because there comes a time that the flower actually can get choked out.
Yep.
The personality is the thistles now.
Right.
The garden is the thistles because you have not let the beautiful things actually bloom because they're being eaten alive by the vices that are growing in your child.
And sadly, the vices are coming from within your child. Original sin is there flourishing along. And really, it is your job to teach your children how to deal with the original
100%.
Sin that will be afflicting them throughout the rest of their lives. And if you're teaching them, if you just persist in sin long enough, then you'll win.
If you persist in fussing all the time, then
eventually you'll get what you want.
Or what more often happens is that your mom starts parenting you in frustration and disgust rather than in love and compassion and because the reality is none of us can put up with a self-indulgent toddler for very long.
No.
So when it what ends up happening is that you snap at your children, then you know you have sin that has to be confessed. So then you're apologizing and they're still living in sin.
Or you snap, then you feel guilty, so then you basically
indulge in
your
the
child.
Yeah, they fuss for 4 hours about wanting to get a green ball, and then finally you yell, "You're never getting a green ball," and then you say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Let's go get you a green ball." And it's that's the problem right there. Is that it's your job to manage both your own emotions and sinful responses and your child's.
Yep.
And that's it's a high and lonely calling. It's a hard job, but it's so worth your time when they're toddlers. And that's what I have to say. I'm not trying to sound too serious about this, but seriously, it is a grief to me when I see Christian parents apparently not noticing what they're letting go.
Right.
Because it is like, oh my goodness, you are making a really unfun time for all of you.
Well, there's one, Ben told this story a while ago, and I admit that I do not remember it. So he remembers it though. And it was with Knox, who was amazingly headstrong and had stamina for miles.
Yeah,
so
Lena did that
once
too.
he dug in, he was in. And so
Luke called it the fudge ribbon of sin. Like you're scooping ice cream, and when you hit the fudge, you're like, let's just get that out. Nope, it keeps going.
And so I remember like having a showdown with Knox. You just didn't know if you were going to come out the other end of that tunnel. And
might be 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Might be, yeah.
And I think this was one that maybe I had not won through to success. Ben got home from work, took over for me or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not. I don't know. But it had been lengthy, a long one. And Knox, I know what house we were living in. So he was about just 2, I think. So he was a little wee tot with an amazing amount of endurance. And so, anyhow, Ben was back there with him in the bedroom. I was out in the living room having all kinds of, you know how it is. You're out there thinking, oh no, oh dear, oh my, oh gosh, oh heavens.
What have we done? Maybe he doesn't know I'm his mother.
Know. Maybe
he didn't know I'm his mom.
He doesn't know how to say I'm sorry anymore. He's refusing to say I'm sorry because
what if
he forgot.
He doesn't know he has that skill.
But anyway, Ben took a break. He came out for a minute to get a glass of water or something, go back in there, because it was like I'm going back in. And he came out and he said that he looked at me and I had that face on, and he was feeling like, oh dear, because now I'm gonna have to get Becca through this one also. And I said to him, you had better win this. He was like, I will. Thanks.
I'm going back in.
Went back in. But I do think that
toddlers are making a run all the time for which of us is more stubborn.
Yeah. Which of us is the boss?
And they have to run into a concrete wall of parent that says there is no hope for you, that you will overcome this.
And the thing is that,
and I want to clarify that I do not mean anything mean about that. I mean, it is not a mean parenting thing to be immovable.
No.
It is the most kind, gracious thing you can do for your children, and it makes children who are so confident in you and secure, and they love it.
Because they're all trying to become Napoleon.
And they don't really want to be that.
And you don't want them to be that, and the whole thing would be terrible. So, anyway, all I'm saying is that you as a mom can also sabotage your husband's efforts to do this. Because
give me that child.
Yeah, or
you don't understand.
Or you can jump in the way to ensure that your toddler wins instead of your husband.
Yeah, I like that Grandpa always said that when people are like, well, how do I know if my child is understanding? And how do I know? And he said, well, if they're old enough to know that screaming will get them something.
Yep.
They're old enough to know that screaming won't get them something that they wanted, or that screaming will get them something they didn't want. If they're old enough, they understand cause and effect. They understand it. They're screaming because someone else got the toy, and that's not because they're dumb.
Yep.
They're smart, and that's how they did that. So all of this is to say that it is so important to win those battles.
Stay in the battle.
And I will say for us,
be patient.
For us, the earliest battles with it was always with little baby fat toddlers in onesies who are trying to throw a back arching, screamer pants fit to get put down. And you feel like the biggest nincompoop in the world that you're like, I shall be stronger than you. And they're like, no, you won't. Wah! And anyways, I would just sit and hold them on your lap and try to we would just hold them until they were ready to be obedient. And I'll tell you, 45 minutes into holding a child that's trying to arch their back out of the situation does make you feel like a lunatic. Like, you do feel like they can't understand, they can't know, and then all of a sudden, they'll stop. And you're like, are you ready to obey mama? And they're like, yes. You say, can you say sorry, mama? They're like, sorry, mama. And then all of a sudden, out blossoms that darling person that you loved. Like, there is
sun shines through the clouds.
Right. So if your baby is characterized by that kind of like kicking, scratching, biting, thrashing characteristics, you can win. Like, you can win and see that joyful person again.
Yeah. Although, if you have, let's say that you have gotten yourself into a scene where you've not been winning, and the child does think of themselves as Napoleon of the universe right now.
It's going to be rough.
It's going to be rough, but you can still do it. But I wouldn't pick every battle every time.
No.
Just start small. Start small.
That's the thing with pottery. Because when it's on the wheel, if you try to exert pressure in all around it, it just blows off the wheel. Like, you cannot do that. You exert pressure in one place and it shapes the whole thing.
Yep.
And so if it's like a nuance, like if you see this child has got a funky thing going on, you look for the place where you can exert pressure that is clear and concise,
so
and then you win there, and that winning has impact everywhere.
Well, oftentimes, I think sometimes with girls, but any kind of child could do this, but some kids, when they sin boldly. They just do it, and you know it, and it's real obvious. And then there's girls that go into this sort of manipulative, funky, fussy times that you can't. Something's off. They're being a stinker, but you can't. There's no like one thing that you get. There's no handles really. So whenever we found ourselves with a situation of that description, or let's say you're out with them somewhere and you can't really deal with things, the lucky thing is that sin's not going to go away in the 15 minutes it will be before you get home or whatever. Yeah. And when you get home, you can just draw a little line in the sand and say,
you just say, hey,
you say, see that line? I don't want you to go across that. And if your kid is in a finky sin, they'll be stomp like, across it.
Or you say something like, call them out and say, hey, come over here for a minute.
Yeah.
And if they go like a jelly and collapse, and then you say, oh, look at you disobeying mama. Like, let's have another chance, and I want to see good obeying.
Yeah. And then you have something clear.
And then it's just clear as clear can be, which is what we always do if a kid is being really fussy or grumpy, is we don't say, you may not be fussy or you may not be grumpy. We say, show me your cheerful face.
Right.
Blow it out. Show me your cheerful face.
Right.
Say, thank you, mama, for dinner. Like, give them an objective thing so that if they disobey, they're clearly disobeying. You're not trying to get them in trouble for feeling sad or for feeling. You don't do that. Aim for the clear things. So, So after that derailment from potty training, we need to go, don't we?
Probably.
So I have a tip this time.
Do you?
We've probably tipped this tip before.
All right.
Well, actually, let's just say this whole podcast was a big, long tip session.
It's true.
Trust big potties. That's one of our tips.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say the tip is using painters' Dropcloths for tablecloths, because
you can
do it. And if you buy them, they're like really stiff and treated canvas or whatever, but they're hemmed. And if you get one of the hall runners, it will fit 2 6-foot tables end to end. Like, you can get a 12-foot tablecloth that will go, it comes off like canvas or something. Well, and then
I will add the quibble. They are not beautifully hemmed.
No, not at all. Probably about as good as my napkins.
No, but it's like big, thick, twiny kind of thread, and it's like, so it can be like dark brown or kind of orangey depending on what you get.
Well, not all of them. But one thing that you can do is take the drop cloth, put it in your washing machine with like a ton of bleach, and let it sit for like 3 hours or something.
Yeah.
And in hot water and bleach, and then wash it a bunch, and it comes out like a softy, cottony, almost a linen look. It works for tablecloths.
Yeah, you're right. And I have even used them for curtains also, because they come in such interesting different but
they're
lengths.
big.
And so
Pieces
they're
of
big
fabric.
and they're cheap.
Yeah.
And they're kind of a cool neutrally thing. I have a stack of them that I had as
If you bleach them, some
tablecloths
of them
that
will
I
go
used them
white
as
almost. Like,
cupboards. Yeah, I used them as cupboards, I said. I didn't, guys.
in
I
her
didn't use them
hobo
as
days,
cupboards.
where she tied it on a stick.
I used them as curtains. But I've had to make do in my kitchen.
There was that one phase where I only made soup and a frisbee.
Well, my tip is I have been every so often buying myself a nice makeup brush. Like, you don't want to spend like a lot of money on makeup brushes all in one fell swoop, but if you buy them one at a time, then it
and
feels,
no one knows the difference.
it feels less aggressive. And so, it makes a difference. I really enjoy having
It's good.
a few nice makeup brushes.
Well, good for you.
I recommend that.
All
And
right.
a big fat fluffy one for foundation.
Okay.
It turns out that's really nice.
All right. Well,
That's what I have.
that's what we got for you, folks.
Guys, have
Till
fun.
next time.
Win the battles.
Win them.
Bye.
You think of yourself now, and then in 4 years' time, what do you want yourself to look like? And is the education that you're considering going to help you get to that place?
When you're a student, you want to become like your teacher. You're going to become like your teacher. Looking at NSA beforehand, I knew I wanted to become like the men who are teaching here.
Fireman, husband, father, doctor, no matter where you want to go, NSA is just such good preparation for the person that you want to be.
If you want to be an effective Christian, you need to be able to lead and shape culture. If you want to do that, no matter what your occupation is, you need to shape yourself, prepare yourself as a person for that job. And liberal arts is, I think, the best education you can have for that.
To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu.